Welcome to What Doesn't Kill Us Special Topics. Let me try that again. Welcome to Welcome to Special Topics and What Doesn't Kill Us, part of the What Doesn't Kill Us horror channel of the Fight or Flight Network. And today we're going to just ask Brady a few questions about his earliest traumas. Hey Brady,
Hi.
happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you.
So I got you this this box. It has a human heart in it.
Nice.
I got it for you earlier today, but apparently that Poe story is pure fiction. The heart doesn't keep beating, so I'm sorry.
That's all right.
A dead heart's better than no heart, right?
Exactly.
So I've been asking everybody in the Fight or Flight Network gang just to talk a little bit about. This was your idea, Brady, so it's your
I have the
fault.
best, worst ideas.
Of everybody talking about what their the first thing that really scared them, whether it's a movie or a TV show, or it could be anything, a book, music. But what's the earliest memory of the thing that really got to you?
Oh man. So I've been thinking about this, and one of the first things I remember that really got me into horror was Bram Stoker's Dracula, like the movie.
Yeah.
That was I remember some weird, like, I don't know why I was even in the room when it was starting to play, but during like the bad parts, I had to go like out of the room. And I remember like hiding under my table around the corner of the wall and like peeking through and just kind of watching and just completely intrigued by what I was watching. So there's that, and then
And how old
actually,
were you?
yeah, so I was
You
like
were seven?
7. Yeah,
Wow, I could imagine how that would be freaky. But you said that you kept watching.
yeah,
You
like I
kept
kept like
peeking.
peeking around, and I was really intrigued by it. And honestly, it goes back to like hearing stories about like my mom would tell me about when The Exorcist came out and like traumatized so many people, and it's the
Right.
scariest thing ever. And I was just like, well, I want to watch it. Like I want that experience. And my babysitter, a huge horror nut, and I love her to death. Like I'm still really close with her. I still talk to her. Um, she used to watch horror flicks all the time. Like she'd put me and my brother to bed, and then she'd still have to hang out until my mom got home. So she would watch horror flicks and that. So like I would hear it, and every now and then like I would like peek through. There was another night that I remember. Uh, I was on I was like sleeping outside. Well, not really outside, but like on the porch, just to be out in the summer nights. And she was watching. So I don't even remember what she was watching, but I remember like peeking through the door every now and then and watching it. So it's not that I was ever like scared by anything, but I was always intrigued by horror.
Right. And even with that, even besides the babysitter, you were already kind of intrigued by it.
Yeah, like I think it's because of her, to be honest. Like she would always watch it, and because she was someone older than me, I was looking up to her, and I was like,
Right.
"Oh, what's so interesting? I want to know." And it just happened that I fell in love with horror throughout the years. Just
Was there any
because.
ban? I mean, were your parents, did they have issues about you watching R-rated films or horror films?
Yeah, originally, absolutely. My mom has only recently picked up my taste in movies,
Oh,
even though I've been trying to get her to watch these things for years. And I think it was just like 3 years ago she finally sat down and watched something. She's like, that was a really good movie.
oh,
I
good.
really
But
enjoyed that.
but
And
that's
it's
of
like,
course, this is 25 years later.
yeah, right. So forever.
Much of and this might be too personal, but how much of the Bram Stoker's Dracula, how much of it had to do with sex or sexuality or
Um, Bram Stoker's was a good portion of it. Like it was very sexual. I mean, if anyone's read the book or watched the movie, or specifically watched the movie,
Yeah, I
there's
think the
a
movie takes
lot
it a
of
lot further than the book
yeah,
does.
absolutely. There's a lot of sexual activity that happens, and it's absolutely very sexual, and that was part of the reason why I couldn't watch it. So that one, yes, that one was very sexual and did kind of go down the path that I think you're sort of alluding to.
Wait, I
And
wasn't alluding to anything. That was really the only question of
oh,
like how much of horror for you is mixed in with eroticism, and I guess it is with all of us to a certain extent. I was
yeah,
just
it does happen. But
what road did you think I was going down?
that road, the eroticism with horror, because a lot of people
Okay.
do that. Like uh, the entire term like of gore porn shows is there because people like over sexualize the violence and death and murder and all these things. So it does happen. So yes, there I do have a bit of that aspect, but not a lot, to be honest. I think uh, Dracula was probably the first one that I ever had that experience with, and I was still super young, so I didn't
Yeah,
really
yeah, that's what.
understand it.
Yeah, no, I was really just thinking in terms of you being that young and how that because I know that looking back at Salem's Lot, one of the reasons why it hit me so hard was that there's a really intense homoerotic vibe through the whole thing, and I remember
Right.
that made an impression on me as much as the fear aspect of it did, you know. So, but you were intrigued by it, but what really got to you? Like, what sent chills? I mean, what really
I
like?
don't know. I think it's just the sense of like, the whole fight or flight thing. Growing up watching like the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, like there's the nightmares are real as it were, but it takes a little. It takes enough focus to be able to be in control of the situation, and it was just something that I really liked. I guess I don't know. I was fairly bullied as a kid, and so just wasn't a popular kid by any means. Kind of the creepy kid, as it were. So
How things have changed, Brady.
right.
No, I'm
um,
kidding. You were saying that growing up with the Nightmare on Elm Street dreams, that's the idea of being able to control the dreams, being able to focus them. That's part of the fundamental attraction of horror that attracts you to horror is being able to
right.
do that.
Yeah.
So you agree with Wes Craven when he says that horror movies are boot camp for the soul. They toughen you up to dealing with life.
Yeah. One of my earlier memories of being scared by a movie actually wasn't me being scared. It was one of my best friends. Like we were it was first or second grade, so it was still back early '90s, and we watched The Sandlot. And my friend was like terrified by the dog, like or just the thought of the dog or something, and he ended up like going behind the couch and just like cowering in the corner while we were watching the movie. And I'm just like, what's he scared of? I don't understand.
Interesting. Did you try to help him, or you just
Oh
wanted to
no, I
watch
was
the
watching the
movie?
movie.
I guess it's
Like,
how we were back then. So, is there any movie or kind of movie you can think of right at this in the present that you see some pretty intense gore, way more than I do? And actually, gore doesn't really bother me. But is there any kind of movie now that you wouldn't watch, or you really would hesitate, or that you think would just shake you up too much? That it's not worth it?
I don't think I'll ever actually like turn down a movie watching experience, especially when it comes to horror, because you never know what's going to like leave a mark on you or actually scare you or actually like give you that emotional response. Um, some of my favorite movies are just like really weird. Like, have you seen Recycle? So this movie it's very interesting. Like it's very much a horror film from the start, but towards the end of the film, like it just kind of twists, and it's more of a moral situation more than just a horror flick. A lot of like the Japanese and Korean horror movies, like it is weird as they can be and scary, like some people find them, it comes down to kind of a moral story at the end of it, which takes some of the fear away, but it's still wonderful storytelling.
All right.
So you were saying that a friend in I was asking you how extreme you were willing to go in terms of watching films, and you
Right.
said a friend invited you to see a Serbian film, and you thought, well, why not?
Right. I mean, I didn't really hear anything about it, to be honest, but yeah, I did some research on it and looked at it and I was like, well, why not? Let's give it a shot. And watched it. And honestly, there was just a few things that I would have changed on it. But other than that, it wasn't really a terrible movie. It was just a shocking movie. And I think that's I think they went too far into the shock value of it rather than try to leave it have it be more emotionally scarring as
Oh,
it were.
that's interesting. So you really saw it more in terms of like you were really judging it for its quality and more for what would have made it better as a
Yeah,
movie, and not so much like flipping out about the extremity.
right. Like it's not terrible as it kind of is, but it's not as bad as most people make it out to be. I
Wait a minute.
think
When you, in what sense do you mean terrible? It's not terrible as a movie, or terrible as what it makes you look at.
there's certain things that happen, and it's not good.
But the whole notion of a baby rape sounds preposterous. Like, how would you possibly film something like that
they
without
don't
making it look ridiculous?
they don't really film it. They more like talk about it. It's more just kind of in the background. You don't actually see it.
Okay.
Right.
It's
So
that's interesting. Okay.
right. And it's like that's probably the most shocking thing in it. And honestly, it's there because they're trying to point out that movies are people are trying to see these really like super see how far they can push the boundaries. Like they're trying to make them super shocking, and that's kind of the point of that film because our main character walks out at that point. He's like, no, that's wrong. I'm leaving now. Bye. And that I think that's to me anyway that's the point of the
Right.
entire scene is just
Right.
this is preposterous, this is where we're going, and because this is kind of in the wake of a lot of the gore porn as it were when it came to like Saw and Hostel and all these movies that were coming out and super popular in the United States. It's just kind of a
Comment on that?
yeah, I to a point, yeah, absolutely. uh it the Serbian film deals with pornography more than just horror, but it's still kind of the
Oh.
same concept.
Oh,
It's like how far
okay.
can we push these things? How far can it go? Like people want these things, and there's always going to be someone that's willing to give them this product.
So basically, you're I didn't realize how analytical you were in terms of your watching of these films. But that's interesting because you
Yeah,
watch
I
so much that you say that you're very open about the fact that they're not good and that they're
mhm,
gore, but you're still looking for themes and moral, if they're morality tales or not, and
right.
sort of what the film is trying to accomplish.
Right. Like I'll sit down and watch a movie just to watch a movie, but as I'm enjoying it, I start looking at different things. Like I'm looking at the camera angles that they're choosing, the lighting that they use. Just because without that atmosphere, the movie is flawed all around.
So you're often looking to see how to make the film better, what it's doing good and what it's not doing good.
Right. Right.
So I still can't get you to tell me what really has freaked you out or flipped you
Okay.
out.
So during our interim, I was thinking about this, and honestly, it actually was not a movie that scared me. Like I played a lot of video games growing
Oh,
up, and I found that there are in fact horror games. Resident Evil is one of the big ones, and so I started playing Resident Evil 2, and it's just a zombie. It's a survival horror sort of game, and back like, if you look at the graphics now, it's awful. It's just cubes, but because of this game, like whenever I'm walking through a building or whatever, and there's like a hallway with a bunch of windows on the side. I stop for a second, and then I have to realize that nothing's going to happen because these games, like, you'll be walking around this mansion or whatever, get to a hallway, and there's boarded up windows, and then these dogs or whatever jump through, and you have to defend yourself, and it's always just out of nowhere. And like I used to play the game lights off, middle of the night, and just be completely like engrossed in it. And then when I'd turn it off, I would have the nightmares. I would be too tense, too scared to go to sleep at the time.
So you were deliberately you were
Yeah,
deliberately making it as traumatic as possible for yourself.
basically, yeah. So it wasn't so much films that scared me. It was the
It's
video games.
interesting.
And
And this is high
so
school era?
no, this is still like elementary school. Like,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Because I don't know the video game chronology, so I don't. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, so
It
you were
was
really young.
yeah. I was still pretty young, and I don't know. I liked it, and like we've discussed before, like Goosebumps, like reading the horror
Yeah. What
genre.
about you? Said you were a big reader. Did any of them really frighten you? Any of the books you read?
I've had the bad dreams. I've had the anxiety or whatever after like putting the book down. Yeah,
Which book? I mean, do you remember, or you just
there
read
was
all the Goosebumps? They all blend together.
oh like all the Goosebumps. Like those were just fun. I liked the horror aspect of them at the time, but the ones that were giving me like the bad dreams were probably, I think, the Time Machine was one of them. Like when
Really?
start getting into the Morlocks like that, that gave me such like just vivid visuals that I
Oh
dreamt
wow.
that entire situation. Let's see, the Invisible Man kind of freaked me out a little bit just because
Wow,
that's
the classics. That's
yeah,
amazing. That's
and
great.
it's really entertaining because I was reading like those books, 1984 and Lord of the Flies and everything. Like I was reading those books while still reading Goosebumps. So
Interesting. But
I
it
don't
sounds
know.
like the higher, what's considered the better literature is the stuff that really got to you, at least
Right.
in the early stages.
Yeah.
Were your parent?
Those
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say those were the books that really like got me thinking about things and really like impacted my mind. Like,
So, were your parents worried about your interest in the macabre so
yeah.
young? Because you were into it much younger than me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Not so much my dad. I mean, we wasn't a big thing. My parents were divorced when I was like one, so I didn't really have a close relationship with him anyway. But my mom was always like, "Why are you reading those things? Like that's not good. You shouldn't watch those movies." And when I found Goosebumps, I think one of the reasons why I was so big into Goosebumps is because that was a thing that she would let me
It was
enjoy.
safe. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Right.
it's a kid's book, whatever. Not gonna be a problem. I think she was a little worried when I brought home 1984 in like third grade,
Oh, that's
just because
interesting.
I mean I've always had a very high reading level, and it's always like shocked my teachers and everything when I tell them what I'm reading and what I'm looking at the time, and like 1984 is one of those books that my teacher was like, I don't know if we should let you read this, but you're probably going to enjoy it. And I took it home, and my mom was like, that's probably not a good book for you to read.
Because it could be really disturbing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
Did it disturb you?
I wouldn't say it disturbed me. Early in the book, there is some themes. I'm not sure if you read it or not.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's been a long time.
Right. So early on, there's a fantasy of our main character getting into the sexual activity and kind of rape of one of his coworkers.
Oh God, rape?
Yeah,
Jeez,
like
I don't remember that.
it's there. The first time I read it, like I got to that point, I'm like, this is way above my head. Maybe I should stop
Oh,
reading this for the time. And I did put it down at that point and then went back to it a couple of years later. Still
oh.
probably wasn't like mentally ready to read through that, but I gave it another shot and read it again. And 1984 is probably my favorite book of all time.
Wow, so you
So
you actually knew that you were getting into waters, deep waters that you weren't ready for, and it was
yeah,
the rape specifically.
really
But why?
interesting.
So how come the movies you watch are so bad, or that you would even say that they're so bad? Like why? That's something I've never. What's the deal with
So
that?
I watch a lot of like B quality films, like when it's actually like a bad movie, like poor lighting, poor
Well, that
writing,
sounds like we're
poor
into
acting.
C and Z level. I mean, not even way
Oh,
below B.
it gets there, yeah. And I
So why
I
do
don't
you
know.
like that?
It's just fun, I guess. I've been interested in filmmaking and things since forever, and these guys are putting things out. They're making movies. The
Right,
movies
right.
get seen. I'm not even doing that. So, this is, something that they've done. Sometimes it's not quite.
So you're saying that at least the horror guys are putting out something that their
Yeah.
stamp is on. I mean, that is their
Yeah.
product. It's
Yeah,
not a big.
absolutely. Like look at the first Friday the 13th. Like, that movie is super low quality even for the time.
Yeah.
And then the second one got a little bit better, and then the third one got a little bit better. And then by the time we got into like Jason X, we're seeing these like at the time like special effects that weren't being seen anywhere else. So I mean, you just got to start somewhere. But then when we look at Hellraiser, always go back to Hellraiser. It's super low budget, and they had a house that they could film in, so they were
Mm,
trying to figure out like how do we film this? What do we do? And Clive Barker was like getting up on ladders and like hunching in the top corners of the room to get the right camera angle that he
right.
wanted. So that's still something. It was still technically like not really. I don't think it was a B movie at the time, but still not a high budget film. Still, you can go back and watch that, and there's still a lot of things in there that still stand up to the effects that people are using now.
So you actually watch these bad movies not to make fun of them, but to actually appreciate what they're able to accomplish on
Right.
such
I mean,
shoestring budgets and stuff.
some of it is to make fun of it as well, like Mystery Science Theater 3000. Love the show.
Yeah.
And that's one of my inspirations when it comes to comedy and reviewing movies and things like that. Just because they look at these films and yeah, they're making fun of it, but they're also like pointing out certain tropes and things that
Right.
happen.
Right.
So it is a little more analytical than a lot of people give it credit for,
Oh
but they're
yeah,
still just
totally.
making jokes.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I've had nightmares, night terrors, and everything ever since I remember. Like I've had a recurring nightmare since probably the earliest I remember seeing it. I was or having it was around first grade when I was living out in a town called Wapello outside of Blackfoot, Idaho.
Well,
And
that's the nightmare right there, right?
right,
That's the beginning of the nightmare.
but in this dream, I am in this like the world itself is super gray, and I'm in a group of people like surrounded by people, a crowd just shoulder to shoulder, and everyone is just packed in and naked and just messed up. Like when someone dies, they just get trampled. There's uh, defecation and such. It's just
Whoa,
everywhere,
whoa,
just a
whoa.
mess.
Okay, there's a
So
lot of. So it was like a concentration camp situation or something
kind
like
of,
that. Yeah.
but it got to the point of like every time I had this dream, I kept like aging. I would have it like at least once a year, and every year that I have it, or every time that I have it, I've aged in my dream as well, and it got around where I started being able to explore, as it were. Like I would find myself getting on top of people's shoulders and everything, and it's just as far as I can see, people, except for on the horizons, there is a tower on either side, like on to my right or to my left, and no matter where I move or how I get around, they never change positions. No, I don't get closer to them. They don't move in the horizon at all. And this is just a dream that's gone on since forever.
That's
So
amazing. I mean, that's the beginning of a film. That's the beginning of a short
yeah.
story or a novel.
So So I have nightmares, and I think that that might be one of the reasons why I like horror so much is just
Wait
because
a minute. Wouldn't some people
dreams.
suggest that the horror is generating some of these nightmares?
I think just because like my nightmares affected me so much that I started relating to the horror genre, as it were, just
I
because.
think the part of our conversation where we're talking about lucid dreaming isn't going to make it through because of bad connection. But
Sure.
is getting each time you have this dream every year, the I don't know the two castle dream. It sounds like, are you doing lucid dreaming with that? Like
Yeah, like
trying to get on people's like trying to
yeah,
move the story
that
forward.
that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get into the lucid dreaming, just because like I wanted to see what was going on. Like there's only so many times that you can have this dream where you're stuck between people and end up getting trampled that you're like, no, we got to see if we can switch this up a bit. So when I found out about lucid dreaming, like that was one of the things. Like I practiced this for a while until I had the dream, and then when I finally had the dream and I realized it was happening, I started trying to move around, and that's kind of where my lucid dreaming went. And then once I got kind of frustrated with that, and amongst other dreams that were happening, I just kind of stopped and just let them go, and just to see where the dreams would go themselves.
So it sounds like this is closer to a horror video game, is what you're describing, right?
Kind of, yeah.
Where you have
To
some agency to move around and to
right,
explore. So
and don't worry
so
about it.
are you suggesting that the films don't scare you when you watch them, but they scare you later?
Yes.
Oh my God, you didn't say that before. That's
Well,
like a whole
well,
different thing.
kind of.
But is that true in the present?
To a point. I mean, at this point, I like I said, I've lived with my nightmares for so long that sometimes I just sleep through them. So yes, but it's not as
But are they linked to specific films now? Are there, what was the
sometimes.
last?
I mean, there are times where I can watch a movie or play like a horror game, and then I'll have dreams based on that. But it's not like my the reoccurring nightmares or the themes that keep popping up in my nightmares aren't based on the movies or the games that I
Right.
play.
You're putting
Every
your
now and
own
then,
content into it, yeah.
yeah, every now and then I'll watch a movie or play a game, and there's something there that makes its way into my dreams, and it's there and gone.
Right, right. So you would, so if a movie's images or whatever characters come into your dreams, you don't work backwards and say, "Wow, that movie really freaked me out." It's just like
Right.
things to use to make the dream happen.
Right.
Oh, okay. All right. So
Yeah.
you're not like shaken up by a movie immediately, or not even necessarily in the dream. The dream, I mean, would you call these dreams just dreams with gothic or dark material, or would you call them nightmares? I mean, to me,
Um,
nightmares are like where you're really
it depends on the dream, but usually like dark themes. But I have definitely like woken up screaming before. Um, I've had the night sweats. I've been like jarred awake from my dreams. Like this is something that happens regularly.
wait to the in the
So
present.
yeah, like still to this day, like I
Waking up
actually
screaming.
yeah. Well, I don't scream so much anymore because I wake up and realize I'm about to scream and then I stop.
Wow, is that
But
so? That's what you would call night terrors?
yes,
These kinds of. But your mother must have been really upset about you playing these video games and reading these books and everything. If she thought, and you if you were having the night terrors at the
hmm
time as a kid, she must have been so freaked out.
and that's why like the goosebumps were something that would work because they are not necessarily scary, but they're still horror, as it were. It was
But
something
you
that I
were
was
reading,
interested in.
but you were reading more hardcore stuff on the
Oh yeah,
side.
oh yeah, all the
That was
time.
just for her benefit, the
Right. Yeah,
goosebumps.
basically. So
If you
yeah.
stopped, you don't think that if you stopped watching horror films and stopped, the video games, I don't know if you still do the video games and like books, all the material, I mean, do you think that you would still have nightmares?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that, interesting.
Yeah, like I in my memory, the way that I have pieced everything together is I ended up liking horror because of my
Already.
dreams. Yeah, like it's always already something
Oh,
there. So seeing like an art form actually exist that
Right.
is that based on the weird things that were happening in my brain. I think I found some sort of connection to like Poe and just the tormented soul. Like people were writing these things that they had to have experienced something, whether it be a dream or someone told them a story that just stuck with them.
Well, clearly he had a lot of he had stuff that he was working through,
Yes.
for sure. I mean, all the great ones are, I guess, in
Yeah.
whatever ways they do. I don't know where you grew up. You grew up in Southern California?
No, I actually grew up in Idaho.
Oh, so I was going to say, if you were in Southern California, it probably wouldn't have been so difficult for you to find people who were into the same stuff. But maybe because you
Right.
were in a less urban or less, I don't know. I don't want to be.
Right. I was my mom enjoyed living out in the country, so
So that's why you felt more like an outsider, because
yeah.
you didn't have too many people who had similar interests.
Right.
And so, were you also in school? Were you like bearded at age 6 and freaked everybody out? Were you like that
Just
type too?
just about yes.
I could see
Uh,
why you would it'd be
right.
intimidating
I mean,
or
I,
fright scare people.
yeah. I mean, I had a bit of a goatee in all throughout high school. So like freshman year on, um, looking back at the pictures, it was very scraggly
Yes,
compared
but
to what I have now. But
right,
yeah, I
but
always had some sort of facial hair.
so did you? When did you ever end up meeting people who you could share? Was it not till college and you met like Crystal and Monica and all them, or was it?
Primarily that, yeah. There was a few things that would happen throughout high school where people would be like, "Hey, we know you're weird. Can you give us a suggestion for Halloween? Like, what should we watch for scary movies?"
So
And
that people
of
would
course,
talk to you one time a
yeah,
year.
basically, like it was really entertaining too because like one of the worst situations, like this is one of the things that just stuck with me, and I was like, "Wow, I'm that kid." One of the like the pastor's daughter in the high school like came up, like her and her group of friends came up to me, and I was like, "Why are you looking at me?" And they're like, we have a question for you. Okay. What's it called when people want to have sex with dead people? And I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
necrophilia? Why are you asking? Because we thought you would know. What?
What year was
Why?
that? What grade was that?
This was like, I don't know, 10th or 11th grade. I don't remember which.
Oy
But I was just
vey.
like, what? What? And they came to me because they thought I would know. I mean, I did. So they weren't
Yeah, but
wrong.
anybody
But
with a vocabulary would know.
right. I mean, that's what I thought. And I was like, why are you asking me this? I don't understand. And they were just like, well, we thought you would know because you're weird.
Oh dear God. So that wasn't very
Okay.
helpful for your
Oh yeah, absolutely not.
self-esteem or
This is
whatever.
this is things that have that's probably the more obscure one, the more memorable one,
Right,
really.
right, right.
But I mean, those things happen since forever.
But it's so
So
nobody didn't any, the cliche would be that some girl, some sweet girl who was intelligent but sweet and seemingly innocent, but she would see that you were just a gentle, sensitive soul. That never happened, like in Donnie Darko or whatever.
no, not really. Like
Or if you'd
because
grown up in some place where there were a lot of weirdos,
right,
so-called weirdos,
right.
but
I
people
mean
who were into
that's
books and into culture and
right.
knew what the word was for fucking dead people. Like I suspect it was a big part of it was just context. You didn't have the right context.
Right. Like, and it's true. Like, the reason why I fell in love with Southern California is because I found
Right,
people that were
right,
very like minded. People were
right,
were doing the weird things, like
right.
Monica and and Crystal
And
for one of our
what was the name of
what
that guy that you guys all love? The gay guy who had the hots for you?
Jason.
Yason. Okay. Did you see the Paradise Lost movies? The
No.
documentaries about the three kids who were who were convicted of murdering that young boy because they were
Oh,
dressed
no.
in black.
No.
Oh, you should watch those. They're really good. Total miscarriage of justice that finally got rectified 25 years later. But I don't know if you're interested in actual stories about high school kids getting marginalized because of the way they look and their interests. But
Well, I mean,
that's
I experienced it,
yeah. You don't need to
so
go. Maybe you don't need to go back to it. But this is
but like I was a huge Marilyn Manson fan
oh boy,
for the longest time.
yeah.
And then, Columbine hit and everyone looked at me different after that.
Oh my
I
God.
was like,
Were you dressing in black?
a lot, yeah. One of the weird things that I started doing afterwards, around that time, was like I just started wearing all white instead, just
Oh.
just to throw the entire thing sideways.
And did it work?
No,
Oh shoot.
like not really. Like it probably would have worked if I would have been
Change your personality too.
changed personality, but if everyone hadn't already known
Right.
that I was gothic. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
there's always. Well, cool. Okay, so I think I figured things out. It sounds like there's a lot that freaked you. Yeah, there's a lot of different strands. It's not basically it's not simple. It's not like you saw one movie that freaked you
Right.
out and scared you or
Yeah,
it's much more complicated. I see why you needed to explain all these different things because it's a
hmm
very complicated story.
yeah,
Interesting.
it's kind of everywhere. Video games, movies, books,
But I mean in terms of like
nightmares.
how
Yeah.
things got how your inner life and the films were different things, but they overlap to a certain extent. And then there's your
hmm
dream life. It sounds like you have a really rich dream life.
hmm
You've got to watch The Last Wave because it's really about Aboriginal dream time and stuff. I don't know if you're into any of that stuff, but that's really interesting in terms of your dreams being like as important as your waking life, just a
Right.
parallel existence. It sounds like you have something like that or you've had something like that.
What?
No, that's all. Thank you so much for sharing. I don't know. And our listeners will get to know each of us better,
Yeah,
and
I
that can
I
only be a good
suppose
thing.
maybe.